So who is the U.S. dealing with in Iran? And what would be the right deal? My next guest got an up-close look to the IRGC when he was a political prisoner in Iran, released as part of the 2015 nuclear deal. Joining me now is Kian Tajbakhsh. Professor, good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Will, for inviting me.
Let's talk about this potential for negotiation and a ceasefire. What are your thoughts?
Look, the Iranians are masters at negotiation. They know how to buy time. They know how to put out feelers. But my view is that the Iranian regime is still trying to buy time and wait to see whether President Trump has to pull back because of domestic reasons, and so they stay in power. So I wouldn't, I think it's very hard to trust what the Iranian regime is asking, what is telling President Trump. Of course, I don't know what's happening behind closed doors, but, they've done this many times before.
You told me that it's not only the regime that is watching to see if President Trump will change his position on negotiation due to domestic politics, but also the people on the streets of Tehran. That this question of when will they rise up, this question of when will they take to the streets, is largely measured by how they feel about the commitment to taking down this regime and protecting them, literally protecting them when they're on the streets.
Yes, that's right. It's important for the viewers to understand that when we talk about Iran as a whole, we should break it down into three buckets. 20% of the population are supporters of the regime. 50% of the population are opposed to the regime, and 30% are probably politically passive. That 20% are going to fight. They're going to defend the regime for religious reasons, for nationalist reasons, and for material self-interest. They've got a good life. They have, their livelihoods depend on the regime. That 50% are the people who want to live under a freer Iran, a democratic Iran, a pro-Western, pro-U.S. Iran. That 50%, currently, they're hunkering at home. They're listening to what President Trump has said, stay at home while the military operation is happening and wait until it's over, and then it's up to you to take to the streets. But I think currently they are too afraid. The regime is willing to kill them in the streets. And so I don't see a horizon right now unless the U.S. can guarantee their safety in some way.
Guarantee is a lot to ask for in a war.
Yes.
So what would be the opening, and what type of security do you think would compel people onto the streets?
Well, currently, by all reports, the Israeli government is going beyond their military objectives and taking out the repressive apparatus of the regime. I mean, this isn't the external military threat that Israel faces. They are hitting Basij and IRGC depots, logistical centers, and even checkpoints in the street. And this means that the population are seeing their oppressors, as it were, being put on the back foot. This does open a little bit of space, but it's uncertain right now whether it's enough space for people to come out into the streets.
And you told me there's some sense that, like, if thousands and maybe millions take to the street, the question is what happens when the Basij comes out with their guns? What happens, because it just happened in January. In January, they literally mowed down the celebrations and the protesters in Tehran. So what happens if it happens again? And what kind of cover, even drone cover, external cover, could they be hoping for to keep their oppressors at bay? Right.
Well, I think those people, that 50% who want a freer Iran, they are seeing the Israelis at the moment hit these repressive apparatus, the checkpoints, the IRGC groups. Now, I think what they're looking for is to see if that ramps up enough to really make the repressive apparatus think twice before attacking. If people come out onto the street, you can imagine a scenario, which apparently a couple of weeks ago this was the case. The Israelis had put drones in the air to protect the celebrants from the Basij. If this is expanded, and I don't know whether that can be expanded, that would create a more opening.
20%, by the way, is still a large number of people. But to be clear, and you and I have had this conversation, Iran is not Iraq. Persians are not Iraqis. So you do not expect a sectarian conflict, civil war at the back end of this in Iran?
No, I don't. I mean, I think, one one can hope, one can fear that it might happen, but in reality, Iran is different from Iraq, Libya, and Afghanistan. I've written and my research, and I traveled around the country. I believe that Iran is more ready for democracy than many people think. The potential is there, the institutions are there, the motivation is there, the leaders are there, but they're currently there's a lid on them. If this regime is weakened, I think there is energy to have a more democratic Iran move.
All right, Professor Kian Tajbakhsh, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.